Gold with Danny Golding starts now.
Just a loyal fan, trying to do the best I can.
Touchdown! San Francisco!
And the Giants have won. They have won the World Series for the third time in 5 years.
The road to redemption has brought the Warriors back home. The Golden State Warriors are the 2017 NBA champions.
Now your host, Danny Golden.
The Gold with Danny Golding starts now.
Just a loyal fan, trying to do the best I can.
All right. What is going down, YouTube? Welcome to the first edition of The Gold with Danny Golding. Yes, indeed. This is going to be a podcast that I am going to be hopefully doing once or twice a week, kind of starting the logistics of it all right now. And so, what is it called again? I'm not going to play the whole intro again. But what's it called? Okay. The Gold with Danny Golding is the name of the program. Not quite yet, but eventually we're probably going to put it on Spotify and all that once we get enough viewership on it, indeed. And I believe I did post a link in the chat. Yeah, if anyone does want to join in the YouTube chat, we're also streaming on Twitter, also known as X, and on Twitch as well. And yeah, we got a lot to get into tonight. I have a whole show planned out. The 49ers at 6-8 right now face the Miami Dolphins tomorrow night in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium. The season is all but over, but they're kind of just playing for pride now. Technically, they're not mathematically eliminated yet, but I mean, a whole miracle would have to happen. So at this point, you might even hope that they lose and get a higher draft pick. But if they are able to get a win against the Miami Dolphins and Kyle's former offense assistant coach, who actually served as in the offensive coordinator role, Mike McDaniel, tomorrow night, that would still be a pretty big win, and it'll leave the Niners on a good note. But yeah, this season did not go as planned. Of course, after losing the Super Bowl last season, and like I said in the last live stream that I did, a lot of Super Bowl losing teams don't end up making the playoffs the following year. That does happen. Actually, the Rams actually did the opposite when they won theirs. They ended up having a horrible season the next year. So they did the opposite. And the Niners, when they lost the Super Bowl back to the 2012-2013 Super Bowl 47 against the Ravens, they actually did go back to the NFC Championship game the following year. That happened. Of course, Tom Brady is the Patriots after losing in the 2017-2018 Super Bowl. They came back and won it the following year. So it does happen occasionally, but a lot of times, you have that Super Bowl hangover and just the extra amount of games last season added on to the fact that the 49ers are actually the least rested team in this season. And what that means is they played about 6 teams, or no, I believe they played 4 teams coming off a bye week, which would be the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Seahawks, and the Bills. And some of the other teams that they played were coming off a mini bye week. So they had a very bad rest disadvantage. I believe it's I heard Larry Krueger on with Damon Bruce yesterday say it's the worst rest disadvantage in 20 years in the NFL in general. So that's, not making it any excuses, but that's a whole factor. And not just that, everything that the whole offseason was a roller coaster circus ride, of course. I believe it was about the day after the Super Bowl, maybe a couple days after, you already heard rumors that Brandon Ayuk's brother was already demanding a trade for Ayuk, or saying that, we want out already unless you pay us what you need. And the whole Brandon Ayuk holdout drama was pretty much lasted almost the entire offseason up until August. That's when it ended, and it was everything from him tweeting that he looks like him and Mike Tomlin look alike, and all that. You had that. You had Trent Williams also having the holdout, or it was a hold in, I believe, with him. He still was in the facility, and that that did not go nearly as long as Brandon Ayuk's stuff happened, but that was still a big factor. And shout out to Sentinels in the chat saying they screwed us with the rest disadvantage. Yes. Also says the entire year from losing the Super Bowl and BA was having a sorry, I can't read that word, but having a fit 15 minutes after the loss. Yeah, just give the season a mulligan. Yeah, I mean, and it's common, especially in this market. I mean, heck, St. Brown from the Lions, I think he ended up signing a record contract in the offseason. And so, especially with the way the market is, receivers are going to demand their money. But I just don't get why it had to last that long. And Brandon Ayuk had a hell of a season last year. I mean, yes, I can see why he wanted to get paid, but having it last that long was just not the right move. And it made a difference because even though Ayuk did, before he got injured in the Chiefs game, he was not having a good season before that, and him not having training camp is definitely a contributing factor in that. Like Ayuk was not actually in the game he got injured. That's when he was finally starting to kind of look good, but still, just not having training camp and all that drama, it definitely contributed to that. And Sensible says, lock it in before the market goes to 70 million. And so, of course, you had that. And then you also had, now about, I think it was a week, I think it was on August 1st, I believe what it was, or not, no, I think it was like August 29th. I think it was a couple weeks before the first game of the season. Or no, actually, I remember what it was. It was the Sunday before, a week before the first Monday night game where the Niners played the Jets. All of a sudden, I'm scrolling on Twitter, and then I see first-round pick Ricky Pearsall shot at Union Square. And me and everyone else seeing that is like, what the actual fuck, what? So that whole situation was scary. It was not only extremely scary, you're worrying about him, the person. Is he even still be alive? Like, everyone's like, what the actual fuck is that? And then of course it's reported, he's going to be okay. He's in the hospital. But just that being the distraction that it was, like, I remember last year when the Warriors were struggling, or actually it was a couple of years ago, actually, after they had won the 2022 championship, when Draymond Green punches Jordan Poole, that pretty much set up the whole tone for the following year. And I remember FP Santangelo, former MLB player, when he had his show back on KNBR and then later on 95.7 The Game, he was like, a championship season never starts with a player punching their teammate. And obviously the exact same thing can be said if player gets shot, it's usually not going to happen of where it becomes even though Ricky Pearsall, yes, was just a first round pick, it was his first season. It may have been a little bit different had it been, someone that was been with the team before. But it's hard to imagine a team having a lot of success if you have a player get shot. Now, if he had been shot and killed, that would have been, a whole completely different story. So the fact that he was okay, made it a lot better, but still all that. And actually, let's see, Bob Money in the chat was saying Kyle partying with Rick Ross instead of worrying about the offseason. Well, it's funny you mentioned that, actually, because I do remember that night the Niners actually had a party with Rick Ross that night. A lot of people were saying, oh, it's kind of tone deaf. But I guess, of course, that was already planned. They're like, oh, why didn't they cancel it? But, Brandon Ayuk, they FaceTimed him and, they all knew he was okay. So I think that ended up being okay. And I know that. And Bob, I don't even know if you mentioned that in regards in general. I think I was just in regards to the whole off season, but I do remember that happened that night, and that was kind of a thing. And Sentinel, oh man, it's like Debo die. Tyshawn is his new name. I'm going to get into that a little bit later on in this stream. Yeah, Debo, he has not had a good year, and I've previously said he should just go by his real name, Tyshawn. It says Kyle didn't cancel the Lil Wayne after party for Super Bowl 54. Now that's a winning mentality. I actually did not hear about that. Sentinel, give me more info on that. I was not previously aware of that. Thank you to my shout out to my friend Ty, who's in the chat, saying go Cardinals. And Purdy's a beast, though. Appreciate you watching. So the Niners are at 6-8 right now, and they're facing the Dolphins, who are also 6-8, but unlike the Niners being fourth place in their division, the Miami Dolphins are actually second in their division. Just, of course, the Bills are 12-2 and having a hell of a year. So it's funny how a difference in divisions are. And this NFC West, it hasn't been great, but it also hasn't been too bad at the same time. Ty, your Cardinals actually had a good start. I don't know what happened. And, I'm looking forward to going to that week 18 game, the final week of the season. Even though it's not going to make a huge difference if the Niners win or lose that game, most likely, maybe they could play spoiler, and maybe they could stop the Cardinals from clinching a playoff spot or something. But, at this point, and, they are going to have the starters play tomorrow against the Dolphins. You're going to see Purdy, you're going to see Kittle, you're going to see Debo is not going to be back next year. You're going to see Juwan Jennings, Juwan Jennings had a hell of a fucking year this year, by the way. I could see that being, because I think if they lose, they'll be officially mathematically eliminated. I do not expect to see, Purdy and the starters the next 2 weeks, because they play the Dolphins. They play the Lions next, and then play the last game of the season in Arizona against the Cardinals. So I don't necessarily expect you'll see the starters. This will probably be the last game. Not all the starters, but you'll see most of the starters will be the last game that they'll play will be of the 2024 season will be tomorrow night. I wanted to talk about the whole drama that's been a big issue about Brock Purdy's impending contract that he's going to get. Of course, he's been on his rookie deal, which he's one of the lowest paid quarterbacks in the entire league. I believe his salary is $934,000, which is, of course, extremely low for the success that he's had. Of course, he was the last overall pick in the draft, so that's why his contract was so low. And technically, he could play last year on his deal, but he obviously deserves an extension. But the question is, does he deserve the $60 million extension, or should he get a little bit less? Now, in this season, he's, so this season he has 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He threw a very, very costly interception, which costed them the game when the Niners were down 9-6 in the Thursday night game against the Rams last week. He had Ricky Pearsall right open. he tried to make a deep pass, they didn't have to. The Niners just had to get a field goal to tie the game, and that was such a shitty game in general. You know, he has trouble in the rain and all that, as we all know. So I'm going to get into that. Bob Money says, "What do you think? When do you think Kyle Shanahan starts getting questioned? I'm seeing rebuilding squads every year." Now, I wanted to answer that. I think he definitely deserves criticism, but I still think the idea of him being fired is a complete joke still at the same time. Two things can be equally true. But what I do think is that maybe he should hire an offensive coordinator to kind of take the load off of him and be able to have someone else. You know, he'll still be the one that should have the final decision in calling the offensive plays, but I think he should have like another consultant who would technically be the offensive coordinator. It's like Mike McDaniel in 2021 was technically the offensive coordinator, but Kyle really had the final say in the plays. That's what I think. But I actually wanted to play a clip of Steve Young, who was on KNBR with Adam Copeland and Derek Papa. What he had to, he was asked that question, and here's what he had.
What do you think of Steve, of Kyle maybe bringing in an offensive coordinator to help him reinvent himself? You brought up all
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like, but it has to make sense to the coach too. Some coaches don't, you know, like I need to go in, you know, in my little cocoon and I cook it all up and then I break it, you know, and then people give me data and the things I need, all the inputs, and then I'm the output. And then in time, you know, Andy and others kind of iterated and found ways to actually empower people to be near them and actually help. And I think there's a trust factor to that and all the rest of it. So I don't think, look, Kyle's tough. He's a tough bastard, man. He's not, you know, he's somebody that, you know, but I think he's also vulnerable enough to recognize that if there's something that can help me, I'm in for it.
Okay.
Because I think that's the great innovative minds, I think, are recognize when my stuff's not working anymore or they caught up to me.
Sentinel says we need an elite DC. Get Jim Schwartz, man. And I can't think about Jim Schwartz without thinking about the infamous 2011 handshake between him and Jim Harbaugh. I cannot get over that. I mean, when I think of it, but hey, you know, obviously Nick Sorensen is not getting the job done as an offensive coordinator. Actually, I believe that Robert Saleh, since of course he got fired by the Jets, I think he's technically on the Packers coaching staff right now. But I have a feeling that that Nick Sorensen will be fired in the offseason and that Robert Saleh will come back to the Niners as their defensive coordinator. And I don't necessarily think Brandon Staley would be back next year either. And I'm actually going to get into that in a little bit, actually. Or actually, we'll just touch on that right now real quickly. Purdy's number 13 is that worship Dan Marino, and Purdy's first game was against Miami. Yes, the last time the Niners played the Dolphins a couple years ago, of course, when Jimmy G got injured and then Purdy came in, that was against the team that his dad grew up rooting for, the Miami Dolphins. That was funny. I actually thought that before I knew that Purdy picked number 13 because of Dan Marino, I thought maybe he picked it because he grew up in Phoenix and he was a big fan of, maybe he was a fan of Steve Nash, because the number 13 was the most popular jersey back in the late 2000s and through the 2010s. I mean, that was a jersey that you would see a lot of people brought of any Arizona sports jersey. The number 13 Steve Nash was the most popular jersey. So before I knew that he got it from Dan Marino, I thought maybe it had to do with something with Steve Nash. But yeah, so that'll be interesting. And of course, another interesting note is the Niners are playing at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami for the first time since losing Super Bowl 54 in that same stadium. Of course, their first Super Bowl loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. But I want to get into this Purdy conversation about whether he should get $60 million. Sentinel says he thinks he should get $55 million. I'm leaning more towards that as well. Now, what I would ideally want to pay him is around $40 to $45 million. But the way the market is right now, and when you have quarterbacks, like let's say you have Dak Prescott making $60 million, Joe Burrow making $55 million, Jordan Love and Trevor Lawrence also making $55 million. Tua Tagovailoa, and the Niners will face tomorrow, making $53 million. Jared Goff, $53 million. Justin Herbert, $52 million. Lamar Jackson, $52 million. Jalen Hurts, $51 million. Now, out of those quarterbacks, Joe Burrow is the only one who has played in a Super Bowl, and Brock Purdy has. So, Brock Purdy's agent is going to make a case for that. And he says you can't pay. Senzel says you can't pay Purdy that low. Purdy's from AZ like you. He was probably shocked at how much it costs to live in the area. Yes, absolutely true. I've heard he's actually still. I heard he actually has a roommate as well. He doesn't even have his own place. That absolutely is true. Yes, but I mean, even a $45 million contract should at least get Purdy a place in the Bay Area, and heck, it's getting really expensive here in Arizona as well. So, I mean, probably was a little shocked, but probably also expected it as well. Now, going over Brock Purdy's numbers as a starter, he's 27-13 as a starter. Now, I'm not actually sure if that counts the playoff games too, because I noticed when I looked on StatMuse when I was preparing for the stream that a lot of times it doesn't count the playoffs; it only counts the regular season. So I don't know. So correct me if that counts the playoffs and the regular season. But he has a 69.1% completion rate with 6,508 passing yards. And this is very interesting. In games when he does not throw a pick, the Niners are 12-0. But in games when he throws at least one pick, the Niners are 7-11. Man, get me a Slurpee right now. Sounds good right now. 7-11. So Brock is almost perfect when he doesn't throw an interception, but he has a losing record when he does turn the ball over. Brock went nine games without throwing a pick from week 17 in 2022 in Vegas when the Niners beat the Raiders, second to the last game of the 2022 season. From then up until week 6 of last season when they lost in Cleveland, which started a 3-game losing streak. And then he then threw 2 picks in the next 2 games they lost against the Vikings and the Bengals, but then won their next 6 games, only for Purdy to have his worst career game against the Ravens on Christmas last season, where he threw 4 interceptions. So it's kind of with Purdy, it's kind of when he has a game when he doesn't turn, not just throws an interception, but doesn't turn the ball over, he's almost unstoppable. But when he'll also have these games where he does throw picks and maybe turns it over, maybe fumbles and turns the ball over a different way, then he's not as good as in those games, which is kind of interesting because usually you see it more on a consistent basis. And Purdy went a lot of games. Purdy went 9 games without throwing a pick at one point. But overall, he has been consistent. And this season, he has 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and he actually this season has 285 rushing yards. We've seen him scramble a lot, as opposed to last year when he only had 144 rushing yards. Now, Brian Baldinger was on the Morning Roast on 95.7 The Game with Bonte and Shasky, and he was asked about what the Niners should do if they should pay him $60 million. Excuse me, let me find this real quick. Hold on. Let's see. Sorry, I thought I had this clip saved. Okay, I guess I did not save it. Interesting. Okay, hold on. All right. Let me get into the chat real quick. Actually, before I work on that, let's actually talk about the DeAndre Campbell situation, of course, Dre Greenlaw played his first game since the Super Bowl when he tore his Achilles. Not even in the game, just walking during a commercial break, just on the sidelines. He's just walking back to the sideline, tore his Achilles. And DeAndre Campbell was not happy with that. Or excuse me, DeAndre Campbell was not happy with the fact that he got benched in the game last week against the Rams. So when he had to come in when both Greenlaw had to come out and then D Winters had to come out, he ended up saying, "No, I'm not going back to the game. I'm just going to go in the locker room." Of course, I heard John Lynch was extremely pissed about that, and so was Tarvarius Ward, and this is what he had to say.
He's a professional. He's been playing for a long time. I mean, if he didn't want to play, he shouldn't have dressed out. He could have told him that before the game. So I feel like there was some sucker shit that he did. Definitely hurt the team because, D went down, and we needed a linebacker, and I think Flynn was banged up too. So for him to do that, that's some sucker stuff to me, in my opinion. Like, it's probably going to get cut soon, so, it is what it is with that.
Now, Tarvarius Ward lost his 1-year-old daughter this season, and he missed a few games after that, and very tragic. That was announced, I believe, after the Cowboys game, that his 1-year-old daughter passed away due to an illness, and he missed a few games, and he came back. So obviously, Tarvarius Ward is going to be fucking pissed at DeAndre Campbell for deciding to pull that shit. There's a clip that I also thought I think I have that. I didn't add it to the folder that I was going to play all the clips, but I think I do have that on here. Bear with me. I try to find this real quick. I believe I do have this up here. There we go. Yeah, there's Nick Bosa. Apparently saw DeAndre Campbell complaining before the game, and he was asked about it.
From him?
I actually did. Yeah. In the locker room before the game, I heard some complaining, and I was going to say something, didn't, because I didn't want to create more of a distraction, but kind of felt it. And so, yeah, I kind of saw the foreshadowing, and I definitely didn't think it was going to result in that. Didn't know it happened during the game, but yeah.
Do you regret not saying anything now?
Not really. No. If he was going to do that, then he's not the type of guy to be here. So
it was no shock that Dre Greenlaw got his starting rollback, and that was the plan all along. Was the issue that he was behind D as well that the complaints were about?
I don't know. Was he behind D?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
A lot of people look at the season and see that happen and think, oh, there must be widespread problems within the locker room. Can you address that? Do you feel like...
No. This locker room's great. It's always been great. But sometimes when you bring somebody who's older in and from a different place, you don't know. I mean, he was a good dude. I mean, it's not like I didn't like him, but no, there's no issues in this locker room. Very rarely.
So you had never seen anything from him previous to Thursday night that you thought might could lead to this?
Not really. I mean, no.
You made the comments after the game. We're going to see who wants to be here the rest of the season. What is it about these final 3 games you think that really is going to separate guys? Because you've never really been in a situation like this where you're kind of playing out the strain.
I've actually never been in this situation my entire football career, except in 2020 when I wasn't with the team because I was recovering, so technically haven't. But in the NFL, every opportunity to go on the field is your resume, so you're going to do your best for yourself and for the guy next to you. And I think we have such confidence in the core group of guys here and really everybody here right now that whatever happens in these last 3 games is really going to be an important stepping stone into the offseason and into next year.
Nick, as a leader on this team, having that happen, obviously there's a different mentality in his locker room that wasn't on display with his behavior. What message would you send to any other player that may be added to the roster in the future to make sure that they know that that's not what this locker room would ever accept out of any player on this team?
A warning.
What does that warning sound like?
I mean, it's not even this team, it's the NFL in general. If you're gonna, I'm sure he's gonna have a hard time finding somebody or somewhere else to go when you act like that, but that's all I got on that.
For so long, we've seen this defensive line be dominant. It hasn't been.
Yeah, the original clip that I got for that was less than that. But that's that's like the whole thing, which I actually did not even hear the rest of. That's very interesting. Now it's funny that Nick Bosa is so monotone and like he's just so funny overall. But I think maybe he probably should have said something about it if he had a feeling that I was gonna. If Campbell said something to him before the game, and I think that maybe Nick Bosa should have spoken up and said something about it personally. But hey, I guess that's just not what his personality is. And shout out to Papa J in the house. Oh, absolutely. Indeed, I did. I have made it. This is the Gold with Danny Golding podcast. We're gonna try to do this once a week. Now, the clip that I had that I was actually gonna put. Oh, actually, before I get into that, real quick, also George Kittle, who, George is usually the chillest guy in the world, a funny guy and all that. But lately, he's been talking a little bit. He was complaining, I think, about not being targeted. It was I forget what a few weeks ago. I think it was after the Seahawks game, I believe. And then he also as well called out DeAndre Campbell. So, and it's also very rare that you see teammates call out other teammates, but obviously it was worthy of that in that situation. And although, yeah, Sentinel makes a good point. It could have been that he didn't want to start a possible conflict with the team just prior to the game. That is true indeed. That is also true. But no, the clip that I had was Brian Baldinger was asked by Bonte Hill and Joe Shasky on the Morning Roast what it would do about Brock Purdy's who's gonna be worth $60 million probably next year, around 50 to 60 million. And what he said, he was just straight up flipping for Sam Darnold. Now that sounds crazy. I definitely do not agree with that at all. Sam Darnold this season has 29 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. So he's had a good year. He's thrown 2 more picks than Purdy, but has a lot more touchdowns as well. And of course, he doesn't know the system. I would love to have Sam Darnold as a backup, and I get the point he would cost less. But then, the Vikings could make a playoff run with him. So it's hard to imagine that the Vikings wouldn't want to pay him around 40 to 50 million to come back next season. So that part doesn't make sense. And this is how I view it. So the Niners, after losing Super Bowl 54 to the Chiefs, of course, they were rumored to be interested in trading Jimmy G back to the Patriots for Tom Brady. And they decided to go with Jimmy instead of Brady. And that was after Garoppolo, he was 15-4 as a starter at that point, including the playoffs. But he was not looking good at all, even with getting to the Super Bowl and all that. The only touchdown pass he threw in that 2019-2020 playoffs was the one to Kendrick Bourne in a game where I actually traveled to the Bay Area to go to that game against the Vikings in the divisional round. That was the only touchdown pass he even threw in that postseason. And he had 2 really good games, one against the Saints and one against the Cardinals in the game that I went to that year in Halloween game of 2019. Besides that, of course, he only threw the ball 8 times in the NFC Championship game when Raheem Mostert, who the Niners are going to see tomorrow, scored 4 rushing touchdowns. So all he had to do was throw the ball 8 times. They didn't trust him. They went with him the following season because, you're not just going to replace your quarterback that just took you to a Super Bowl for a 43-year-old quarterback who a lot of people thought wasn't capable of winning a Super Bowl. Of course, that ended up being wrong. He won it the following year with the Buck, which I don't think he would have won it that if somehow Brady was on the 2020 Niners. He may have won one the following season, but there's no way that the injuries that happened, he would have won it in that season. But looking back, it probably would have been the better move to go with Brady at that time. Brock Purdy has looked way, way better than Tom Brady. He's been more consistent. He actually makes throws most of the time. Doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. Yes, it's gonna cost a lot, but you have a lot of players you want to retain. I mean, just Jawan Jennings after next season his contract's going to be up. He's going to be wanting more money for how good he's playing this year, and if he continues that next season. But I would say there's absolutely no way that they're going to trade for Sam Darnold. Just absolutely no way. And actually, I'll get into what Sentinel and Papa J said in the chat. Sentinel says Baldy is fucking stupid for saying that, because if he watches the games, he'd know that Trash Darnold started a game, or at least played with the Avengers, and he stunk up the joint. He says he lost all respect for Baldy. Hey, I like Baldy. He's a good analyst, but I definitely do not agree with that opinion at all. And Papa J says, isn't it weird that Baldinger has been standing up for Brock Purdy until the last two games? I mean, for the past 2 years, he's been pulling for him now. And why is that? Well, I mean, it's people can, based on what someone has done for you lately, you can kind of change your opinion. And Brock Purdy he played really well against the Bears, but, against the Rams, he made a lot of mistakes, and especially the one that costed them the game, throwing that interception almost in the red zone. But still, it doesn't make sense. That whole idea of, having trading for Sam Darnold next year, despite the fact that he would cost less, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I wanted to get into Warriors a little bit. After losing on Thursday night 144-93 to the Memphis Grizzlies, tonight they beat the Timberwolves 113-103. Steph had 31 points. Trayce Jackson-Davis had 15 points. Kuminga had 11 points. And, of course, Dennis Schroeder, the new addition, had 9 points. Of course, last week they traded DeAnthony Melton, who's out for the season, for Dennis Schroeder. A lot of people think that's not the last move they'll make. People are thinking they might trade Jonathan Kuminga. I'm not exactly sure whether they will or not. I think it depends. But after the Warriors started off 10-2, and then they have struggled a lot since then. They're now 15-12. So hopefully they'll get back on track with a win, with that win against the T-Wolves. But actually, what I thought was really funny though is now before the game was actually delayed, and I was actually watching on the stream that I had was actually the Timberwolves broadcast, which I thought was they had some very funny coverage of it. This is what happened before the game. Jonathan Kuminga hung on the net and it actually broke the net. Take a look at this.
You know that bad boy in and you're good. So this is, if you're joining us late, Kuminga just hanging on the rim and just blocking teammates' shots, just having a good old time, and he did not realize that he was going to delay the game by 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, the game ended up being delayed, I believe, 30 minutes, and that was just, that's very rare that you would see that. You would see something like that happen. Sentinel says Seth is bipolar as fuck. 2 points yesterday and then 3 pointers back to back. Yeah, that is true. I mean, when you have a great like Steph Curry, and you have an 82-game NBA season, you can't expect them, especially with Steph being 36, you can't expect them to be Steph Curry every single game. So that's not too surprising. But that was one of the worst games he had in his whole career. And in the game where they lost, where they basically got eliminated from the NBA play-in tournament, like anyone, or not the play-in tournament, the in-season tournament that no one really gives a shit about. He kind of tried to do the night-night a little bit too early and took a bad shot at the end of the game with a few. Where there were about 10 seconds left, he could have waited a little bit longer to do that. He wanted to shut up the Rockets and do the night-night at that a little bit too early. And of course the foul that ended up being called when it should have been a jump ball is what lost that game. And of course, Steve Kerr was extremely pissed about that. But hey, it's Steph Curry is still Steph Curry. He led the whole USA to a gold medal this summer, so he might be a little bit bipolar, but overall, he's still Stephen Curry. that's all I gotta say. Sentinel says get Jimmy Butler. I was kind of opposed to that at first. I was like, oh, you got to keep Kuminga, but as of lately, I'm like, I would not be shocked if they did decide to trade Kuminga and maybe add Brandon Podziemski, even though he's not been doing too well lately, even though he's been sucking lately. If that wouldn't shock me if they did that, but I just don't know if Miami would accept that trade though. So who knows? And yes, Papa J, that was funny as fuck. That was indeed. But Ricky Henderson, the A's legend Ricky Henderson passed away. I believe it actually was last night, but the news came out today. I believe he was battling cancer. Now, of course, I am a San Francisco Giants fan, but Ricky Henderson is an absolute fucking legend. He won 2 World Series. Of course, he won the 1989 World Series against the Giants when the earthquake happened. He also won it in 1992 was with the Blue Jays, or not 1993. Excuse me. He won it with the Blue Jays. He won as an AL MVP from 1990, ALCS MVP 1989. He's a 10-time Gold Glove or 10-time All-Star, Gold Glove Award winner 1981, 3-time Slugger Award winner. But the most impressive stat, though, is he's the all-time stolen base king in all of baseball with 1,406 career stolen bases. So Ricky Henderson, very sad. He was about to be 66, I believe, on Christmas Eve. And this has been a rough year for Bay Area baseball. Of course, the passing of Willie Mays back in July, or back in June, actually, I believe it was. Passing of Orlando Cepeda, and then, of course, the A's final season in Oakland, which actually Ricky Henderson was last interviewed. He was at that game, and I have that clip for you.
I'm Ricky Henderson. I'm at the Coliseum for the last time. It's a great moment here. I wish all y'all would have came out for this great moment. It's a great time for me to be here with all my teammates and everything else, all the great players, all the great actors, all the great, softballs, people that come out to enjoy us, so we're going to have a good time.
Welcome back to another episode of the Jim on Base Show. We're here at the Coliseum with the great Ricky Henderson. And Ricky, it's great to see you.
Oh, it's great to be in here. It's a beautiful day. So, we're going to see we have a good time out here.
And one thing that I thought is really neat is you're here at this event for the last day of the Coliseum, and you grew up in Oakland.
Oh, yeah. I grew up in Oakland. Been in this ballpark for so many times as a kid, as an adult, as a player, and all the good stuff like that. So this last time to me is a special time. So I'm coming out here to have a good time, enjoy this last moment that we see this great ballpark that has so many memories here that we had at all time.
And what's it mean too? Like, what's your relationship like with Mr. October, the great Reggie Jackson?
Oh, we got a great relationship right now. I think we have a great relationship for many years. But I think when I first met Reggie, when I was a kid, and I used to come out here and look at him and try to be an idol of him, be a player just like him, I think I didn't like him because he didn't give me an autograph. I got him punished me a lot of time waiting on Reggie Jackson to give me an autograph. But now he's a great friend of mine, and we have a great time.
And one thing I ask everybody I have on, as you know, there were so many great days here, like Days on the Green. Mm-hmm. Who was your first concert that you ever went to?
Oh, man, Power. I think it mean Power. and who else out here? You know, I saw a lot of people out here, but you know, I was more into sports than I was coming to concerts out here. So when I got an opportunity, I probably ran in the back door somewhere just to get in to see them.
Well, Reggie, it's great to meet you. Thanks for giving me some time.
All right, it's a pleasure being here. All right.
Yeah, that's just an absolute legend. Just hearing him talk, and yeah, Papa J. Yeah, that happened just. I don't know if you're first hearing that, but yeah, that happened just last night. I saw it on Twitter about like 6 hours ago, I believe. He's definitely one of the all-time Bay Area baseball legends, Bay Area sports legends. Now, what's interesting also is he played for the A's first from 1979 to 1984. Then he went to the Yankees from 85 to 89. Then I guess he would have gotten traded back to the A's in the middle of 89 because he played for the A's again from 89 to 93, then played for the Blue Jays in 93 with won his second World Series, and then played for the A's again 94 to 95, then played for the Padres from 96 to 97, the Angels in 97, the A's again in 98, then the Mets from 99 to 2000, Mariners in 2000, Padres 2001, Red Sox 2002, and the hated Dodgers in 2003. So he had 3 separate stints with the Oakland A's, which I did not even realize. Like, I had no idea about that at all. Sentinel, he says that when I first heard the rumors of LeBron wanting to come to Golden State to play with Steph and get a ring, I nearly had a heart attack. No fucking way is LeBron stepping foot in the Bay without being booed. Hey, you know, I'm a fan of LeBron overall in his career and what he does off the court. Even though I don't agree with all his opinions, but no, I would not want LeBron on the Golden State Warriors. Now, 10 years ago, it's interesting though you mentioned that, like a decade ago, before they had won any championships, I remember Greg Papa back when he was on the 95-7 with John Lund. I remember him saying that I don't want LeBron on the Golden State Warriors. Your goal is to beat him. And at that time, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you not want LeBron on the Warriors? And I was like, of course you're going to want LeBron on them. And that was before he went back to the Cavs for his second stint in Cleveland. But he ended up being dead right because the Warriors were able to win 4 championships with Steph, Clay, and Draymond, which back in 2014, no one probably expected to happen. Baba J says Ricky Henderson was the epitome of Wesley Snipes on Major League movies. The dude was a legend. Indeed, indeed. So before I end this stream, I actually wanted to point out, so I wanted to do a segment at the end of my shows called Anniversaries and Funny Stories. Now, back on, I think it was December 14th of 2021, Steph broke Ray Allen's all-time three-point record.
Curry, quick release, and splash! There it is! The best shooter the game has ever seen has cemented his legacy. No one has made more threes than Stephen Curry. And when you consider he has many more years in his career, he might be setting a record that may never be broken. Draymond Green, Stephen Curry hugged down on the floor. An intentional foul by the Warriors. They're going to stop the game, and the ball will go to number 30. Standing ovation here at Madison Square Garden.
It's emotional.
It is emotional. His dad's here to see it. His college coach, Bob McKillop, is here to see it. Larry Riley, the general manager of the Warriors, who drafted Stephen Curry, is here to see it. Steph's mom is here as well. Handshakes and hugs from his teammates, from every coach. Big, long hug from Steve Kerr, a great shooter in his own right. And the most threes in NBA history belong to Stephen Curry.
Yes, 2,974 3, set the all-time record set by Ray Allen. Of course, Ray Allen was in attendance as well. So let's see. Back on, I believe it was December 16th, 2012, the Niners played the Patriots with Colin Kaepernick at quarterback, and they beat them 41-34. Kaepernick threw for 221 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Gore had 21 carries, 83 yards. Michael Crabtree, my first ever 49er jersey, had 7 receptions on 107 yards. So that was back on December 16th, 2012. And then so I actually wanted to get into a kind of a serious anniversary that happened just 2 days before that game on December 14th, 2012, in Newtown, Connecticut. A 20-year-old Adam Lanza shot 26 people, 20 children, and 6 adult staff members were killed in one of the most horrific things I remember happening in my entire life, actually. I was 15 and I was a freshman at high school back then, and I just remember hearing that and being like completely in shock that anything like that happened. I think it was probably the most, unfortunately, the most notorious school shooting that happened since Columbine back in 1999. Just absolutely awful that happened. I remember my high school at that time actually changed their policy where they had to lock all the classrooms because this was in December of my freshman year. Before that, you could actually just walk into any classroom you wanted to. Like, let's say I remember the first week of school, I would go into the wrong, since I would get confused into which class I was supposed to be in. So I would sometimes go into the wrong class. I would just walk into any class. Since then, you would have to knock on the doors before you could go into the classroom. But just an absolutely awful thing that happened, of course. And I don't want to get political at all, but the whole, being passionate about wanting changes to be made, and I might be a little bit ignorant on the whole thing. And a lot of people are saying, oh, if more gun control can cause more shootings and all that. I just want something to be done to stop that also doesn't infringe on anyone's Second Amendment rights, because I do think there's too many shootings that happen in our country, which is a lot different from other countries. But I also don't think legal citizens should be stripped of their gun rights at the same time. So I think that something more should be done to make our country safer. So yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Exactly 12 years ago today, on December 21st, 2012, the world was supposed to end. The movie 2012 came out. I'm actually not sure. I think it came out like in 2009 or something. But and the whole Mayan calendar ending on December 21st, 2012 made people. I mean, not a whole lot of people, but there's some people that actually thought that was going to be the end of the world was going to be 12 years ago today. I remember that. That was kind of exciting, to see if the world was going to come to an end. I do remember that, but man, that happening about a week after the Sandy Hook shooting, which it almost seemed like that could have been the end of the world just on how unusual and awful that was. Sentinel, I'm going to. So you said the problem is mental illness. Both political sides will never solve that issue because it's always a great subject. They can milk their votes from that. That is a decent point. There's, both sides probably do that. Mental illness should also be something that should be addressed as well. So let's see. Let's get into the crazy stories edition of this. Now, of course, the United Healthcare CEO. They got killed a couple weeks ago, which I'll just say that I don't think any murder should be celebrated, but I do see why people thought that whole thing, why people weren't bothered by that, because United Healthcare has screwed over a lot of people. And the healthcare system has, but I heard that company in general was more, was solely responsible for denying a lot of insurance claims. So I do see. So if you ever had United Healthcare, you want to beat this guy up too. Yeah, I mean, if he would have been I wish the guy would have just beat him up. I wish that the Luigli, Mangioli, whatever. I wish the guy would have just beat the fuck out of him rather than shooting him. Because he still at the end of the day had a family, but. So I see both sides of this, but how I'm getting into that actually is there was a thing I saw that there was an overpass, and I know this is extremely small, but there was a sign on a freeway somewhere that said "One less CEO, many more to go." And apologize for how small that thing is. There's no way to actually add just regular pictures. You have to add banners on the StreamYard. Yeah, it said one less CEO, many more to go, which was a threatening message on some free overpass somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where it was. So yeah, that's what I'll say. That like I said, like I don't think murder should be celebrated, but United Healthcare has screwed over so many people that I can see why people, think that was something that'll at least bring awareness to the issue of that. No, this is funny. Back on December 6th, I saw it on the Cron 4's Twitter that I retweeted it. Mother angered by missing fries threatens San Pablo fast food workers with gun. A mother in San Pablo threatened fast food employees with a gun being held by her 9-year-old daughter after becoming upset that French fries were missing from her order, according to the San Pablo Police Department. Officers responded Thursday afternoon to an unnamed fast food restaurant in San Pablo after one of the employees called 911. Authorities said the mother was mad about French fries missing from her order and sent her young kids to fix the issue. The children were told by employees to bring their mother inside with the receipt and they would help. The mother came back in a hangry state, police said, and began to threaten the fast food workers, telling them she had a gun in her purse. Arriving officers found the mother, who admitted to police that she did have a loaded handgun in the purse that her 9-year-old daughter was holding. Officers rendered the weapon safe after the daughter handed it over. The mother was arrested and booked into the county jail for criminal threats with a firearm and child endangerment. The child's father was called and took the kids. Man, how do you do that over French fries? Like, I mean, that's just over fries missing. I mean, that's crazy. But you see a lot of stories like that. I feel like to do this segment the correct way, all I have to do is go on local Florida news station's Facebook page and find stories like that, because usually they come out of Florida, but in this case, it actually came out of the Bay Area in general. Sentinel says, and the guy didn't go to the offices of United Healthcare and delete everyone. He was specific and took his target out and was arrested. That's how it should be done. Don't kill innocent people. Yeah, that's true. I mean, now I do agree with you that he wasn't necessarily innocent. I mean, as far as the law goes, yes, he technically was, but the way he was legally screwing over people in a way. I mean, just the fact that he made $30,000 a day is what I've heard. And United Healthcare, I believe, was also the richest healthcare company as well. And he was making profit just screwing over people who actually needed healthcare and denying insurance claims and all that. Just awful stuff. I don't agree with the fact that he got killed by that guy, but I see why everyone is happy about it though, at the same time, if you know what I mean. Another thing actually is, now it's actually funny. I was going to just talk about how I heard a few days ago that Michael Vick, that the Sacramento State was interested in hiring Michael Vick as their head coach. And just right before I saw the stream, I actually heard that Michael Vick is named the 19th head coach at Norfolk State University. So Michael Vick is going to be the new head coach of Norfolk State. Who said David Teal and Michael Sauls of the Virginian Pilot first reported Tuesday that Norfolk State agreed to a contract with Vick to give him the position that was left vacant after the school fired Dawson Odoms. This comes after Sacramento State President Luke Wood told ESPN's Adam Schefter he met with Vick to discuss the former quarterback's interest in becoming the head coach of the program. Vick has never coached before, but he is familiar with the area as someone from Newport News, Virginia should, in theory, help him recruiting. Wow. And what I was going to say about that in general was that Michael Vick, he served his time. What he did was absolutely awful. Killing all those dogs with the dog fighting ring. That was absolutely awful. He served his time, then he came back into the NFL. But I don't think it's necessarily the best idea to have him be the face of your university at the same time. Now, having him going back to the NFL is one thing, but having him actually being a head coach of your college football program, I just don't know if that's particularly the best look. But it's actually funny. It made me think, back 15 years ago when I was 12, I actually made a video about Michael Vick coming back to the NFL, and I gave my 2 cents on it. Take a look.
But he served a time of 23 months in jail. So yeah, the other thing is he might not be as much of a good quarterback being in jail for that long. And I think that might be a possibility. I think that could be a possibility, but I think overall Vic's gonna be pretty okay.
That's me from about 15 and a half years ago talking about Michael Vick coming back. And he actually wasn't too bad with the Eagles. You know, he was never the same as he was before that. He was, you know, he was on the cover of Madden, and I think it was like 2004 or something. You know, Wildcat. He was known for the Wildcat offense, which was unstoppable. And then, of course, he went to jail for the horrible stuff he did, and then he served his time, and he came back to the NFL. And now he's going to be the head coach of Norfolk State. Wow. Also in college football news, as far as coaches goes, Bill Belichick, I believe last week or a little over a week ago, was hired by the University of North Carolina, the Tar Heels. He'll be their new head coach. I watched Bill Belichick on the Manning cast back when the Bengals played the Cowboys. And, you know, it was really cool hearing him on. He's a good, good analyst, but he wanted to go back into coaching. And there were some rumors that he would try to go back to the NFL. There was even Larry Krueger even suggested last year that maybe the Niners should have hired him as a defensive coordinator if they were going to let go of Steve Wilks, which they did. And of course, I think they did. Kyle Shanahan did reach out to him, but he said he wasn't really interested in that. Of course, he'd want to be a head coach. And him being in the collegiate level actually might be better for that because he doesn't have to, have the whole pressure about trying to be a head coach of an NFL team again and trying to, have his legacy again in the NFL without Tom Brady. So that's going to be very good for North Carolina. And hopefully his 24-year-old girlfriend doesn't get too jealous of him being around other girls that are around that age. I mean, geez, how creepy is that? And Bill Belichick being 72 and then dating a girl that's 3 years younger than me is absolutely insane. Just like Mark Davis, the Raiders owner, dating a 27-year-old girl as well. It's just, I mean, I can see how you can. I mean, it's legal still, and I can see why it's hard to resist the urge when you have hot chicks that young, when you're that old, going all after you because of your money. But I see why, but at the same time, it's still a little creepy. So, yeah, that's what I'll say about that. Before I end the stream, if anyone would like to click on the link real quickly and join real quickly, they are more than welcome to. I believe that's all I have, though. The Niners-Dolphins game tomorrow, it's not going to mean much, I don't think, because they're almost completely eliminated from the playoffs, but it could be a good win to get. And if this is their, and if they lose their next 3 remaining games, it won't be too bad. They'll get a higher draft pick as well. But it would be good to, play for pride. Obviously, you never play to lose, and I've never rooted against my team to lose. I remember actually going to a Niners-Cardinals game back in 2010 when they started off 0-5, and they probably only had like 2 wins going into that game. But they got a really good win on Monday Night Football against the Cardinals, and that was a really cool, experience to see. So, I wasn't rooting for them to lose and to get a higher draft pick. But if that ends up happening, if they end up losing the next 3 games, which I know they're going to, even though the Lions are going to rest their starters, I'm sure, next week, I still don't see them beating them. So I definitely don't see them winning all 3 of these games. I think they'll at least lose to the Lions. And I personally do not think they will beat the Dolphins tomorrow because Isaac Guerrero is going to be out for that game. So Patrick Taylor is going to be at running back. So it's hard to see them. I mean, both these teams have the same record, but when I did my picks this week, I actually picked the Dolphins to win this game tomorrow. Like I said earlier, it's their first time being back at Hard Rock Stadium since losing the Super Bowl 54 to the Chiefs there. And Hard Rock Stadium, though, before I get off the stream, it's a really fucking cool stadium. And Miami is a place that I would love to visit in the future. I'm going to be 28 next month, and I'm actually planning to visit Miami maybe for my 30th birthday, place I've never been to. when I was thinking about if I could go to any games, any road games on the road this year, I thought, man, it'd be cool to go to Miami because Hard Rock Stadium looks really cool. And, Miami's a hell of a place. So, that's definitely on my bucket list to go to the future. My Hard Rock Stadium is on my bucket list as well as going to a Niners Seahawks game in Seattle. And next season, I'm planning to possibly go to New Orleans to see them play the Saints there at the Superdome. Other than that, most of my bucket list is for visiting baseball stadiums. I really want to visit Wrigley Field, Fenway Park. I'm actually planning to next August, beginning of August, I'm actually planning to go on a trip to New York to see the Giants play the Mets and then see the Giants the series after, I believe, see them play the Pirates at PNC Park. So looking forward to that. Thank you to everyone who watched this stream. Thanks to my friend Ty. Thanks to Scott Zillow. It was on here earlier. I actually forgot to. He also said, just like my friend, he also said go Cardinals. I know he's in Arizona as well. Thank you to Bob Money. Thank you to Sentinel and Papa J. Papa J, I've seen you before on the KMBR chats. So it's good to have you on here as well. Thank you to everyone for watching. Hold on, I'm gonna play some outro music real quickly. Let's find this. Here we go. So this has been Gold with Danny. I might do a stream this week. I know it's Christmas week. Hope everyone has a good holiday. Whatever you celebrate. I might actually do a Christmas Eve stream. Talk about Christmas, what your favorite Christmas movie is and all that. Talk a little bit more about the Niners, the Warriors, the Giants, the Sharks this year with Macklin Filiprini. Anything you want to talk about. But this has been the Gold with Danny Golding. I'm going to end all my streams by the golden rules. This is the golden rule that a lot of people have sign-off lines. Like Ralph Barbieri, of course, had the Angels fly. They take themselves lightly. Damon Bruce has had sports social character. They reveal it. So my sign-off line for all my streams is going to be treat other people the way you want to be treated. Peace.